Hi, this is Dan Gilmore, Supply Chain Digest and the Supply Chain Television Channel. I'm freshly back from the Logility Software Connections User Conference at the Intercontinental Hotel in New Orleans, just a few blocks down the road from the French Quarter. I'll tell you, this is a company that is doing very well right now, frankly better than even I realized, and it put on a very interesting conference with some presentations that should be of interest to most of you, Logility customers or not. I'll get right into all that in just a second, but as usual, first, some of the sights and sounds of Logility's Connections User Conference 2012. All right, Logility is a division of American Software and has moved over the $60 million mark in annual revenue. That's quite a bit larger than I realized. The company is known for its planning solutions, especially in the kind of core demand and supply planning areas, collaboration, but also as a nice manufacturing and planning and scheduling module, as well as warehouse management and transportation management, among other tools, the latter of which especially it appears they're making some real investments and progress in. Last year, the company acquired Optiant, a provider of inventory optimization software, and it was, in my opinion, an excellent move. It brought into the company some really smart technical talent and large customers like Procter Gamble and HP. More on that in just a second. In his keynote presentation, President Mike Edenfield said software sales are up 91% in the last 18 months, and that headcount is up some 30% in the same time period. That's quite a bit. Most surprising to me is the level at which Logility is now growing its international sales up to 21% of total revenue. That's more than I would have guessed from a company that was not too long ago very U.S.-centric, but certainly not anymore. The company is also spending some 18% of revenue on R&D. That's a very large percentage for the software industry. Among the fruits of that investment are some new demand planning capabilities, Edenfield said, under the umbrella that the company calls Proportional Profitable Planning. I'll call it P-cubed for short. The advancement here are some new capabilities that for forecasting base SKUs that then have numerous sub-SKUs underneath them. The most obvious application is in apparel, and I think that sector produced actually the first customer for this product with all the style, color, size, permutations that come under that base SKU. But there are actually other sectors that face the same or related demand planning challenges. I didn't see a demo yet, but the product is said to make the job of forecasting all those sub-SKUs easier and more accurate. More on that soon from Supply Chain Digest. Also on the first morning, Sean Willems, co-founder of Optiant and now Logility's Chief Science Officer, as well as still teaching at Boston University, gave an outstanding presentation on inventory optimization. Frankly, one of the best I've ever heard. I will probably write up a story on this sometime soon, but two things really struck me on hearing Willems' presentation, in addition to just doing a great job of presenting Inventory Optimization 101. First, he said he usually relaxes senior management at a company considering an I/O solution by telling them, listen, right now you probably have approximately the right level of inventory. You just have a little too much of some stuff and not enough of some other stuff. Very witty. Second, he said in developing an I/O solution, he needed to, in quotes, totally and completely solve the problem. He said one early customer simply told him that if the company needed to take the output of the Optiant solution and multiply it by a fudge factor or otherwise make adjustments, it just wouldn't be accepted. So that is exactly what he said Optiant has done. Very good. Before we summarize a few other presentations, I had a chance in New Orleans to have a discussion with Mike Edenfield, the president, on where the company is headed. Let's just take a few minutes to listen to that conversation. Mike, first off, been here a couple days. Been a very nice event so far. A lot of energy, good crowd. I think biggest ever. You said. Congratulations on a very nice event.
Thank you, Dan.
Got a couple of questions for you. First off, I mentioned earlier in the broadcast that last 3 years you've been performing very well financially. Good numbers across the board. I mean, we all know in the end that's driven by customers, new customers, expanding at existing customers. But beyond that sort of obvious, driver, what really is behind the success you had over that last couple of year period?
Well, I think our brand has improved as we've had such great results from our existing customers. And whenever we're in a selling environment, we have to provide references for those customers, and they give good results back to the prospects.
Okay, very good. You're obviously very close to the customer because you're out there working every day with existing customers, trying to get new customers. Our audience is always interested in what are some of the key trends that are out there. What do you see in terms of trends or sort of new direction in the way companies are thinking about their supply chain, and then kind of related to that, how they're using Logility software?
Well, there's a big emphasis on sales and operations planning now, much bigger than the past years. So that's driving a lot of projects, supply chain improvements. And also, there's been a lot of focus on planning in the past, and now they want to keep planning, but they want to also optimize that plan from a supply chain perspective.
Okay. And that kind of leads into, you made a great acquisition of Optiant a few years ago, heard a number of nice case studies here at the event about how they're using those inventory optimization tools. Some really smart guys came along with that acquisition, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So very helpful, but I believe you're not only advancing that inventory optimization solution, but some of that knowledge and expertise and technology in terms of optimization as a whole is finding its way into your product line in other areas.
Yes, it is. We've really expanded, as I mentioned earlier, from more planning to more optimization. And our supply chain planning system is now optimized with our own engine developed. And that's integrated with Optiant, as you mentioned. And so we've got the inventory optimized and then going into the supply and manufacturing optimization.
Kind of a related question, but you talked about, given the financial success you've had, obviously that gives you more leverage to spend more in R&D. Not only are you doing that generally, you're actually doing it at a very high level, something like 18-19% of revenue. That's a big number for a software company, any company, frankly. Where are you putting the money? Where do you see that investment in research and development paying off for Logility and its customers?
Well, it's going into S&OP, for example. It's going in to make sure we have the most current technology. For example, everything's on the web now. And then we do some industry-specific things as well. We've done a lot in apparel. If you can solve apparel's problems in supply chain, you can handle a lot of other industries because they are very complex with the style and size and width and things like that. So that's where we're focusing.
Okay, very good. Logility been around a long time. I think I started interacting with the company in the late 90s. A little history before that. Been around now, still standing, still doing well. Yeah. A lot has changed. Some's the same. Some is the same. Some's a little different. Just to kind of catch everyone up from your view, what are the sweet spots in the market for Logility, and conversely, what are the kind of companies that should think about Logility in terms of a possible supply chain solution?
Well, we focus primarily on large and medium-sized companies. We're working with some of the largest companies in the world. ExxonMobil's a client, for example. Seagate's a client. We focus on specific industries: chemical, process, food and beverage, consumer packaged goods. I mentioned apparel earlier, and MRO as well. So we can, if you have a supply chain problem, you have an inventory problem, you have a customer service problem, we can help you.
Yeah, seems like a lot of focus on kind of distribution-intensive industries. Is that a reasonable assumption?
That's to sum it up across those industries. That would be a good term to use.
Okay, highlights on some of the other presentations, starting with Bill Tarleton of Procter Gamble, who detailed how its really good core operations research team realized a few years ago that you could only take single-stage inventory optimization so far. You really needed to optimize the whole supply chain across tiers. That's just what inventory optimization does, and P&G has achieved some excellent results with I/O, reducing inventory levels from 3 to 10% or so, depending on the business unit, and as much as 11% in the cosmetics area, a sector which is notoriously hard to manage inventories in. Interestingly, P&G started out using the tool with cosmetics because they didn't want to spend a lot of time developing the solution and processes for simpler businesses, such as maybe paper products, and then found out they didn't really apply to the more complex product areas like cosmetics. That's something we're thinking about. Bob McAdoo of transportation equipment component provider Parker Hannifin gave an excellent presentation on Parker's S&OP journey. A few things really stand out. He said it's important early on to realize you really have to focus on how you consistently turn the crank each and every month for the S&OP process, meaning you really have to think about that repeatability from the get-go, and it isn't easy. He also said that trying to get sales and marketing people to accurately forecast generally, and especially down to the SKU level, is pretty much a waste of time. They were just bad forecasters, he said. That's interesting because many companies try to put a lot more forecasting onto sales and marketing. He said they should review the numbers to make sure there isn't anything out of whack and provide qualitative feedback on what is happening, but not really do much in the way of core direct forecasting. He also said that one of the most important things for S&OP success is doing the work necessary to get people to believe. Too many companies, he said, don't invest enough time there. You have to really think like a marketing person to get it done. For example, he developed a 30-second elevator pitch for anyone who would listen, a 10-minute presentation that he gave to executives as an overview of the concept and the benefits, and a more detailed 60-minute presentation for those that would be directly impacted in each business unit relative to S&OP. Analyst Laura Cesari of Supply Chain Insights isn't bullish on what consumer goods companies and retailers are doing in terms of collaboration. In fact, she says she has seen exactly 0 examples of true, deep, beneficial collaboration in the sector. And she's been looking at this a long time. She also says very few, if any, companies are really effectively using POS data today, and that too often companies view the most efficient supply chain as being the best one. Not at all true, she says. The good news is we have a lot of runway to continue to improve our supply chains. Okay, I think I will wrap it up there. It was a fine conference from a company that has it going pretty well right now, and in my opinion made a very smart move with its recent Optiant acquisition. Thanks for joining me.